for a moment, I want you to stop and think about what it would actually feel like to hit your goals that you set out in January for yourself this year. Like to actually hit the career goals that you had set in mind or any other goals that you set in mind, and actually picture for a second waking up every day doing the thing that you truly love. So I know 3/4 of the year is now done. I cannot believe that we are actually in September. And what this is an opportunity to recalibrate, check the areas where you may not be hitting all of your goals. And today I'm going to be sharing a 12-week plan that you can introduce that I use personally to hit all of your goals for the year end. So I find at this time of year, we're either celebrating and really happy in the areas where we did hit those goals that we set in January, or we could be like renegotiating, like maybe looking back at those goals and thinking, you know what? It's okay if I don't do that. I mean, it's not meant for this year. I'm just going to turn it down. I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to have some grace with myself. But I want you to really tap into the moment where you set those goals for yourself, whether it's for your career or any other areas, and reevaluate, because right now is a huge opportunity to actually hit those goals before year end hits. And on December 31st of this year, be celebrating the steps that you took to actually achieve all of the goals that you set out for. So you already know, if you've been here for a while, I am huge on goal setting. This isn't the first time I'm talking about it, but today I'm sharing 2 ways that I look at goal setting that I've never shared before, that are really controversial, and they've been super helpful to me in achieving the goals that I've set out for myself. And I'm also going to take a look at what hasn't been achieved yet and create a 12-week plan for myself to make sure that on December 31st, I'm like celebrating and super happy with the progress that I am making. September is one of the biggest hiring seasons of the entire year. So January and September, there are huge booms in hiring. And in September specifically, what's happening is budgets are being reallocated for the rest of the year. And if there's headcount, then those roles are going to be posted. And there's typically, what we see historically, a huge influx of roles that are posted, which is amazing. It just means there's more opportunity. But also hiring managers, decision makers, they come back off of holiday, and maybe you've done the same. Maybe you've taken it a little bit easier through the summer, done a little bit less, prioritize maybe time in the sun, time with family, time on vacation. And that's exactly what decision makers are doing as well. And often the roles will be prioritized to actually be filled, even if they've been posted throughout the summer, in September, October. And this is a huge opportunity for you if you've set career goals where you want to be in your next level role. You want to, make sure that you're in that role before the year ends, or even get that offer before this year ends, then right now is the time to take action. Often the people that are landing interviews September, October are the ones that actually end up with offers by November. Me personally, in my director role, I ended up getting an offer at the end of October, and I negotiated a January start date because I had my bonus that was going to be paid out in January. So I wanted to make sure I stayed at my current company until the end of the year. But I started interviewing with them in September and actually got in that role in January. And that is extremely typical. I was recently at my Career Cravings live event, and afterwards I did a VIP dinner, and it was incredible. By the way, I'm going to be breaking down all of the details of that in the first 3 episodes in October. So I'll be sharing detailed behind the scenes of what happened, and I can't wait to do that. But I had this VIP dinner, and one of my clients was sharing she wants to stay in the role for a year. So that means she wanted to stay until December, like December 31st. And I'm like, okay, amazing. She's like, well, when should I start getting my resume together, all that stuff? I'm like, right now, because September, there's a huge opportunity. And what will happen if you wait until October, November to apply? There are so many roles that are already in final stages where they're about to give offers to the people that they've already been interviewing for some time. If you set goals to land your next HR role by the end of this year, then fantastic. I wasn't going to be doing this, but I am doing a free masterclass that I'm hosting literally next week on September 11th. If you swipe up right now, you can save the link and save your seat for free to the masterclass. I'm going to be sharing specifically step by steps the process that I walk all of my clients through in order for them to land a role. So I'm going to be talking about resumes, interviews, all those things, and how to do it the most effectively so you can land your next role by the time this year is up. So even if you're looking to start that new role in January, this is something I don't do very often. I've only done it one other time this entire year. So you don't want to miss it. And it's going to be fresh content with what is working in today's market, the shift that I've seen most recently since the last session, and all those good things. So you're going to want to save your seat if you are looking to land your next HR role in record time. So you can also head to irenapozan.com/free training, or just swipe up in the show notes, click the link and save your seat. And I will see you there next week. Also, the energy of the live room is always amazing. I'm always flooded with so many comments afterwards of people saying that shifted my perspective. I'm going to do things differently. And then I always get notes a couple weeks later that they're like, I implemented what you said. I landed the job, or I landed the interview, or whatever that is. So it's always super, super fun to see. And again, this is the last time I'm doing this in 2025. So get your booty in there. I want to see you there next week. And at the end, I'm also hosting a live Q&A. So if there's a section you're getting stuck and you couldn't make it to the live event, freaking amazing. Bring your questions there, and I can't wait to speak to you live. Hey, it's Irina Pozan, and welcome back to the Career Cravings Podcast. This podcast has a simple mission. It's to help ambitious professionals like you build the career and life that you've been craving. Over the past 15 years, I've worked as an HR leader, designed hiring systems, led recruitment teams, and I've sat on the other side of the hiring table. I've seen what works in today's job market, what doesn't, and what separates those good candidates from the ones that actually land their dream roles. Now I'm bringing everything I've learned straight to you. Each episode is packed with actionable insights and tools to help you land your dream role sooner. Now let's dive in. All right, so let's get into the details of this episode. Like I mentioned, there are two things that I do very differently than typical year-end planning processes or typical goal setting processes. And I want to share that with you today because, again, we have a huge opportunity. We have 1 quarter left to hit the goals that we set out for ourselves. And I am definitely not. There are areas where I am like completely exceeding my goals, but there's one area specifically that I am not happy with, and I am creating a 12-week plan as well. So I'm going to walk you through what that looks like. So the first thing to do is really to do a career audit of where you are right now towards hitting your goals for the year. So if I asked you, are you on track for hitting your career goals that you set out in January? Really? Not the negotiated goals, not the ones you kind of dimmed down. Maybe you thought you'd already be in a role by now. And if so, that's totally okay. Everything happens for a reason, and there's still a huge opportunity. Now, I didn't want to do this episode in December because that is very deflating. If in December you suddenly do an audit and you realize that you're not where you wanted to be, there is not very much that you can do about it at that time except plan for the next year, right? So in December, it's like hiring is typically shut down. It's a lot more quiet. There's no roles posted. Typically, decision makers and many recruiters as well are on holiday. There's shutdowns at some companies and just not much is happening. So I don't want you to look back in December and be like, oh, shit, I should have done something in September. Right? So I want to ask you now, do that audit. So take a second. You can even pause this episode. You can journal on this, but really, where are you at? And maybe you need to look, maybe it's been a while since you've even looked at your goals. Maybe you need to take a moment, look back and really think about what are the goals you set in all areas of your life, specifically career, since you're here on the Career Cravings podcast. And where are you on track? Where are you exceeding? Where are you ahead of schedule? And then also, what were you hoping to achieve by the end of the year that is not on track? And if this question is making you a little uncomfortable, where you're like, I don't even want to think about that because I'm so far off of where I thought I'd be. I thought I'd be in the role by now for the last, 6 months. and that hasn't been the way this year has gone. I thought I'd be promoted by now, whatever that looks like for you. It's totally okay, because as long as you have the awareness, that is the very first step. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, like that one area that I'm going to go into where I'm not on track with my goals. It does make me feel extremely uncomfortable. And this is the part where I want to hide. Like, I don't want to look at the goals. I don't want them in front of me, where typically I do tell myself to look at my goals every day, because it feels a little bit uncomfortable, right? And there's so many aspects of our life, but I know in January, you're typically like your most inspired self, where you're like dreaming big. We often have this tendency to really think about a year as a long time. And we sometimes set those huge, audacious goals that really come from our deepest desires. And then if we're not hitting them, we're often going back and renegotiating with ourselves and telling ourselves things like, well, that doesn't really matter. It's totally okay if it went like this, and so on, which is okay. But if you do have that desire to hit the goal, then this episode is for you. We're going to walk through how to do that. So do that career audit. So ask yourself, where are you at? Where did you want to be? And take a look. So what I personally do is quarterly, I look at the business as a full year. So there is a book that's called The 12-Week Year. And after I read it, I adopted this process, and it is incredible how much more you can accomplish when you adopt this strategy. So I just looked back at the second quarter of my business. So that quarter is done. And those 12 weeks in a quarter, I consider to be a year. So time is something that is completely constructed. It's a concept, right? The 12 month calendar, the 24-hour day, this is just a construct that has been made up, right? There's 12 months in a year, and this is why. And you can create your own goals based on any time frame that makes sense for you. So for me personally, I live 4 years in 1 year. And the way that I do this is every 12 weeks, I take a look at all of my goals. So we'll use the business as an example, but I create goals for my business, for my personal life, for my family. They're all intertwined. They're all one big year, and they all fit in there. But when I took an audit of the business over the last quarter, which is 12 weeks, I set bigger goals thinking about it like it is a year, right? Because in a year, we will often challenge ourselves to do a lot more than we would per quarter, right? So I looked at it, I set incredible goals, and I overexceeded on the business side on all of them. And that feels really good. I mean, it was a really powerful quarter. I'm very happy with all of that process. And what it does is allow me to recalibrate and set even bigger goals for the next quarter. So on the business side, I actually did achieve a lot of my annual goals in one quarter. So there's overexceeding there. And sometimes what we do is when we hit a goal, we take the gas pedal off, right? We slow down and we're like, okay, well, I'm already good in this area. And then we kind of yo-yo back and forth or take it easy. And for me, I love to challenge myself with new goals because I am someone who believes in personal development. I am obsessed with personal development. I love pushing myself to do things that my younger self or even myself a year ago could not have even imagined. And that is something that really, really drives me. So every single quarter, I fully recalibrate as if it's January every single time. And I, again, go back to that January feeling and I dream really big. And I'm like, okay, if this was the best year ever, what would it look like? And I map it out within 12 weeks of action and I take action on it. Non-negotiable. I take action towards that big goal. And these quarterly sprints then allow you to recalibrate, to remeasure, to look at the data, to get feedback, and then make even smarter and better goals for the next 12 weeks. So this is why I do this. I don't like to plan annual goals just because they are so big. So much can get done. So much can get accomplished. And when I look at the career process of getting hired, like say you're looking to level up, you're looking to land your next role, freaking amazing. That can be done within a 90-day sprint, right? So what does it take? I'm going to walk you through all the details in the masterclass, but it starts with the resume, right? Getting clear on what you want, the career clarity, then comes the resume, then comes the job search strategy, then comes figuring out the pitch, the interview skills, And all of these things work hand in hand, but all of that can be done in a quarter. You can go on the interviews in 3 weeks from now with the right strategy and 2 weeks from now with the right strategy. And then you can land that offer within that 90-day period. So that is 12 weeks. So if you haven't hit that goal, amazing. You could put all of your attention into doing that for this Q4, which could be your year. One of the things I also realized when I talk to friends and family, I realized that most people aren't really evaluating where they are based on metrics, right? They're just kind of going hard blindly, like applying and grinding and waiting and hoping something sticks. But that's not truly a strategy. And you're also not using data to inform what you should be doing differently to really achieve that goal, but really taking an audit of all of the details, right? Looking at your career with the same level of intention that you would a business would be really, really helpful. So for example, I'm looking at revenue. I'm looking at my costs. I'm looking at like, what are the priorities for the team? What are the projects that I'm working on in the business and metrics associated with that? Like how many downloads, how many this, how many that? What is the revenue month to month? What are the projects that are being launched? And the same should be done with your career. So if your goal is to, let's say, land a director role, a VP role by December 31st, start in January, you want to be making 200K. Now, okay, amazing. How is it going? So look at the metrics that you have. How many applications have you sent out? How many responses have you had? How many networking meetings? How many responded? How many interviews have you had? How many offers have you had after going to final stages? And all of this is going to tell you where you need to readjust and tweak and what kind of plan you need to create for the next 12 weeks for yourself. So that's the first strategy. I just started implementing this process this year, the 12-week year, and it is just incredible. I find the difference is when I think of the whole year, like I have 12 months to achieve this, I'll let things slide. I'll be like, okay, I'll start working on that thing in whenever, like October. I'll start working on that thing in June, halfway through the year. And then there are weeks that I know I could be getting more juice out of myself. And I know there is like more capacity to do these things, but I'll let them slide because I'll be like, oh, for the year, like that's not on this year's radar. That's on next year's radar. And then I won't end up doing as well as I could. And to me, hitting my highest potential is my biggest priority. So feeling like I'm going to look back at the December 1st at the end of the quarter and be like, wow, I said I would do that. I held the promises to myself and I did it. And this way too, even if you didn't hit one of your goals, you have a chance for a fresh start, for a restart. This is day one. Okay, it didn't work last year. This is what I'm doing differently this year. And you look at the data and you make the adjustments and you create a plan week over week for those 12. And we can do anything for 12 weeks consistently. Like that is not very much time. And that's the exciting part too, to be able to hit one of your milestones or one part of the project or to get that end goal within those 12 weeks is super inspiring to me because I love to see progress fast. I don't want to wait a whole traditional year of 12 months later to be like, oh yes, I did do that. It's like that could be done in a quarter. What am I stretching this out for? Now, I also want you to reflect on those big, audacious dreams. So I know I mentioned that at the VIP dinner at the Career Cravings podcast event, afterwards we went for dinner and I didn't know what to expect because I actually didn't know what anyone's specific goals would be coming into that day. It was going to be something where I focus on each individual and like provide the coaching that they need in the moment, right? And I was really, really surprised by the huge, audacious dreams that were shared. And it was so incredible to me to hear like one person wanted to write a book, and that is amazing. And we created a plan for that. Someone else had another big dream that she hasn't shared with anyone. She actually created a very beautiful post on LinkedIn, which I ended up resharing, Sophia, but she created a really big dream in that moment. She didn't even know she was going to share that with the group and with me, but she felt comfortable enough. And I'm so, so grateful because she ended up having a really big shift and everyone walked away with a step-by-step plan for their big, audacious dream. And that can be achieved. One part of it, one milestone, part one, whatever that is, can be achieved in a 12-week period. And looking at it that way, like, what am I going to do this year, puts a lot more pressure on the quarter, but a good pressure, like a pressure to get that fire lit, to get re-excited the way that we do at the start of the year. I know I'm going back to this event again. And what I'll just say is in October, I'm doing one episode on like a full behind the scenes of how I planned the event. And by the way, the whole end-to-end process was less than 12 weeks because I looked at it like this was a goal for 2026. But then I'm like, no, I'm putting it into this quarter and we are going to do this. And that was one of the things that I overachieved on within the quarter for my own 12-week year. The whole event was just a completely heart-opening, expanding experience. And I'm doing a full episode just breaking that down. So listen for that in the first October episode. And then the next two episodes will actually be the live podcast that took place there live. One was a keynote speech that I did. Another was a Q&A panel where the audience could ask us anything. And this was just amazing. We ended up going for like an hour and 15 minutes or maybe an hour and 30 minutes where I had to cut it off. There were so many burning questions, which was so good. So I know I need to do that again soon. But I'm like, guys, if we don't stop now, like if we don't stop these questions, then we won't get to lunch. We won't get to the headshots. We won't get to the networking, which I know we all want as well. So anyway, you'll listen to that. And I know you're going to also get so much out of that episode. But what this event has really taught me is that we are capable of so much more within a year than we give ourselves credit for. And there are other areas where I'll walk you through where that's happened as well. But we can really create the quarter of our dreams, the life of our dreams, the career of our dreams in much shorter of a time than we give ourselves credit for. Okay. So I want to counter your thinking of your goals need to be set on an annual basis because they don't. You can have a year, a month, right? You can have a year in a month if you wanted to. Now, for me, that doesn't leave enough room for like accomplishing something bigger that I really set my mind to. So I love this concept of the 12-month year. So I would challenge yourself as we're going into this new quarter to really reflect, to look at where you want to see yourself by the end of the year, which area you want to focus on, and then go all in. Now, why do I believe so much in goal setting? So I'm going to give you an analogy, which is like a bloodhound. Okay. So when you set a goal and you tell yourself, I am going to be X, I am going to be this type of person. I am going to be in, let's use that director level role example. I'm going to be in that manager role, whatever that dream is for you. When you set that and you set a date to it, you say, I'm going to be in this director role by December 31st, 2025. Right? You're going to have that offer. Then even when you're not consciously taking action, like it might be a Saturday, you don't have anything planned in terms of trying to achieve that goal, but your brain is going to be then hardwired to be like a bloodhound, which is trying to sniff out any opportunities. So maybe you're at a summer barbecue, like a Labor Day barbecue, and you meet someone and they're in your field, or maybe they work for your dream company. All of a sudden, your brain is like a bloodhound and it's going to be sniffing out opportunities or shortcuts to help you achieve that goal that you had set out for yourself. So you might be like, okay, amazing. I spoke to this person and now I'm going to actually take action to follow up with them on LinkedIn and write them a message about how great it was to meet them and nurture that relationship and see where that goes. And who knows, that opportunity can land you an interview in a couple of weeks, right? Or maybe you were at my Career Cravings live event and you set a goal to network with people. Amazing. Maybe it's time to now follow up and nurture that relationship and see where it goes. But all to say, when you set that goal for yourself, your mind will be looking for ways to accomplish that once you say it out into the world, into the universe. Once you put it out there, your brain will be finding ways to achieve it. I believe in manifesting our biggest goals. I believe that we have the ability to create the life that we desire. And I know this because I've literally done this in my life in many, many ways. And there are too many examples to go into today, but I would love to dive into that sooner. But I also know what it is not this like soft girl era of sitting back and just hoping an opportunity, comes in at the right time. When you set big, audacious goals, you will also have to picture that, set the goal, but then you're going to have to actually take action to make it happen. So if you're one of these people where you're sitting back and hoping an opportunity just comes to you. An idea just comes to you. A networking opportunity just comes to you. An interview just falls in your lap when, the data hasn't been saying that this is the way things have been tracking for you. Then you may be very disappointed when that year-end moment comes and you realize, well, I don't know. I tried to manifest that. I put it out there, but nothing happened. Well, it's because you need to take action. And the way you can take action is by having that goal for yourself for the next 12 weeks. Like, say you want to land that role. Okay, amazing. Maybe in week 1, you are getting clear on the intention of what type of role you want to work in, what type of company you want to work for, what type of role you're going to have. Maybe you're going to picture yourself in that role. Freaking amazing. Next week, maybe it's the resume, right? You're like, okay, well, this resume isn't working now. I need one that will work for sure. I need it to be based on data and so on. And you have that goal for the second week to create that resume. Maybe for the next week, you have a goal to begin applying and you set a metric, like I'm going to apply to 10 roles every single week. And you do that. And then you're measuring progress. By week 3, maybe you want a couple of interviews to already be in place. So then you're measuring your results week after week after week. But when you really are able to visualize that goal, set it for yourself, you will have the week by week plan, but your mind will also be like the bloodhound trying to sniff out opportunities and making it easier for you. This is why the goal setting process just works so well. When you create that big dream, you also take action, and then also you're putting it out in the universe and things are aligning. And you might think one day, how did that happen? Like, how did that interview come about? Like, I can't believe this happened. How did that happen? Well, you're taking action, but you also put it out there out loud into the universe that this is something that you're going after. And that is when you start to see the momentum towards the goals, and not those small goals, like even those huge goals that you have been setting for yourself. Now, the other thing that I'll say with setting goals and manifesting and creating those big, big dreams is that you need to practice being in your goals. So how do you practice being in your goals? So say we're going with that example, the HR director role. Say that is your goal and you need to practice being in it. Well, what does that look like? You need to think about who you need to become in order to achieve that goal. What is that version of you that already has that director job doing on a day-to-day basis? Figure that out. And then I want you to practice doing that. You could practice doing that in your job right now by taking on additional opportunity or projects or even mentoring people or providing support and asking yourself day to day, like, what would I do if I already was living in my goal? And the reason this is so important is because even if you end up attracting that opportunity and maybe you're going to a final interview, but you haven't practiced being in the energy of that goal, what will happen is you may self-sabotage and push it away because it is uncomfortable. So I'll give you an example. You know how when you're walking through your own house with your family, you're walking through the front door, you came home after grocery shopping, you're walking through the front door, you're yelling, "Hi, I'm home," right? And then you're speaking to your family. Now that takes no mental effort, right? You're like, of course, I do this all the time. This is second nature. This is normal. I walk through my house all the time. I say hello to my family all the time. This is not something that takes any mental space for me. This is simple. This is what it is. This is what I live every single day. Now, what's the difference for you? Ahead of a networking event where you're walking in alone and you don't know anyone, you don't know who's going to be there, you don't know if there will be anyone to talk to, you don't know who you're going to have a coffee with, you don't know who you're going to sit next to. There's a lot of mental energy that goes into that, right? Because you don't have control over the situation and you're walking into an event where you haven't practiced being in before. So you might actually be, I don't know, driving down to the event and like rehearsing some of the things that you want to say or the questions you want to ask or your introduction because it just feels so unnatural. So there's a huge element of feeling comfortable, like walking through your house versus walking through a networking event or an uncomfortable situation. And when you are not practiced being in your goals already, you may self-sabotage and push that opportunity away without knowing it because it is new, it is uncomfortable, and most of us are fairly uncomfortable with change. So visualizing already having achieved that goal is also going to be a huge element of making that a reality. That way, if your subconscious is also comfortable with this goal because it feels like it's familiar, then you are going to make decisions that are aligned with getting the results that you actually want. And once that is done and you take action, you can touch that dream. You could see what it would actually feel like. And you would be so much more familiar by seeing it first, by naming it, by feeling what it would be like, and getting so clear that you can actually visualize it. When you're doing something new and scary, there is so much underlining subconscious work that also needs to be done to really align with this bigger dream. So wherever you can get familiar with those situations of what it would feel like, then the better and the easier the whole goal setting process will be. So what I like to do is at the end of that 12-week period, I like to imagine what it's going to be like to actually achieve that goal, to picture myself celebrating. What am I going to do? Am I going to open a bottle of champagne by the pool? Am I going to, cheers my husband? What does that look like? What song will be playing? What will it feel like so that I can get my nervous system ready to do something I've never done before? So I'll give you one example. When launching this podcast, I've never done that before. There was a lot of mental work that happened last year for me to even prepare. So first, I created that goal. And then I needed to get in the energy of what would it actually look like day to day? How would it be to record an episode every single week? I've never done that. What would it look like? What would I be doing? What would the routine be like? How would I plan for it? How would I actually execute on that? Who would upload it? And there were so many different elements. So I created a 12-week plan in order to launch that and to make that a reality. But first I needed to see it in my mind. I had to picture within 30 days, this is actually something really interesting. I pictured that it would become a top podcast within the first month. Right. And I don't even know where this came from because I had no data. I didn't know what it even takes. I wasn't doing anything different to try to get on any specific lists. And I put that out there and I practiced the feeling of already celebrating that and already having achieved that goal. And one day out of the blue, my podcast manager ends up sending me a video where, every month she takes a look at how the podcast is doing. But I didn't know that then. It was my first month of having the podcast out there. And I knew I was getting a great response because I could see the downloads. I also knew that I'm getting so many different comments from people, and people were DMing me and really sharing how it was affecting them and changing their life and the tips they were taking away. And then I had, Sophia, who was actually at the VIP dinner as well. She landed a role just by listening to the first 4 episodes of the podcast. So there were things like this that were happening, but, it was all bubbling sort of underneath the surface. And one day I just opened my emails completely out of the blue, and I end up getting this report from my podcast manager. And she had done a video kind of explaining the metrics to me because they were all new to me, and she's walking me through. And then all of a sudden, I didn't expect it. She's just and you hit number 8 under careers on Apple Podcasts. And I just literally start bawling my eyes out in that moment because what I had already pictured and the goal that I had set had just felt like it effortlessly happened out of nowhere. And it took me by surprise, even though it was a goal that I had set. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't research how that would even look. And then it was because my brain was like a bloodhound. I was okay, if I want to be a top 10 podcast, this is probably what I have to do. And I found the ways subconsciously to make sure that happens because that goal was important to me. And seeing it, the moment was just I had pictured it. And you could do the exact same thing with your goals. So right now, I want you to pause, write this down somewhere. If you're driving, don't do that, but I want you to make a mental note to come back to this part in the podcast. And I want you to think about what would it feel like to hit my goals by December 31st. Pick one, just so you have that focus. And if it's the career one, amazing. You're going to set a 12-week plan. And one of the steps should definitely come to my free masterclass because I'll actually walk you through every single step that you need to use a proven process to land that role that you're looking for by the end of the year in the next 90 days. Okay, so that was all number 1. That is related to the 12-week year. And to summarize, time is a social construct. Literally, There is no rhyme or reason that your year needs to take 12 months to have your yearly goals accomplished. You can do that within 12 weeks. That is a good amount of time to make progress towards very large and meaningful goals, whether it's starting a podcast, hosting an event, landing your dream role, whatever that looks like. That is more than enough time to have the strategy in place and to hit milestones along the way. Of course, you're going to have milestones for the first 2 weeks, for the next week, for the first month, second month, and so on to make sure you're on track and be measuring that with data all the way through. And then the second part of what I talked about in the 12-week year was like really being able to visualize where you want to be by the end of the year, because your brain will be trained to go and make that happen. And it's just going to make everything more smooth. It's also going to make sure that you feel comfortable not pushing that away when the opportunity presents itself. It's that bloodhound example. So you really don't need 12 months to change your life. You just need 12 focused weeks. Again, this is the goal setting system that I absolutely live by. So just to summarize, if you could hit any goal, there was no risk to doing so by December, what would you do differently today? What would that goal be? And also on the flip side of that, like what do you need to stop doing? Now, before we move on off this topic and go into my second method that is also fairly controversial, I do want to say that I set very large goals for this quarter and for the year. And again, on the business side, the ones that I had set are over exceeding, which is amazing. So I'm going to make even bigger goals for the next quarter because I've seen them take place and I had to recalibrate and I had to go back to the drawing board and be like, okay, well, I blew those out of the water. So let's go a little bigger. What is the bigger dream? And sit with that and really create the goals for the next 12 weeks. But there is one area that I'm super unhappy with, which is my health. So you guys already know health and fitness is something that's super important to me. But this year, I made a goal to be at a certain body fat percentage. And you already know, if you're here, I am working out every single day, at least Monday to Friday, and typically weekends too, depending on what we have on the go and where we are and if we're traveling and, where we are. But I haven't been measuring my progress, which means I am literally eating anything that I want. And you already know that fitness goals are achieved mostly in the kitchen. Like a lot of it is the nutritional aspect. And even though I'm working out daily, I'm like checking that box. I'm not really focused on it. I'm not measuring anything. I'm not getting on the scale day to day. I'm not measuring what I'm eating. I'm not tracking it. I've literally, the last quarter, I've been living my best life. Like we are going out, we're going for Mexican, we're going for tacos, we're going for margaritas, we're going for, we just built a wine cellar at home as well. So my husband's like so excited. He's obsessed with wine and collecting wine and has a huge collection. And like every Friday he's like, okay, well, let's try this and let's try that. And I'm like, okay. And I just go along with it. When I am in my era of actually setting a focused goal and measuring it, I am like a machine. I will do whatever it takes. I will hit that goal. There is no stopping me. I will measure if something hasn't worked one week that I'm going to go and change it up. I know what to do in my mind, but if I'm not measuring progress over that 12 weeks, I'm not getting anywhere. So I looked back and at the end of the quarter, literally I was sabotaging myself and I'm actually much further from my goal than when I had set it. And that is really upsetting to me because health is really important. And I feel like there is this misalignment and it affects me on a daily basis. Like things are starting, even though, all my clothes still fit, like of course they still fit, but everything fits a little tighter. Everything is a little bit less comfortable. And it takes a lot more mental space for me to even think about like, what am I going to wear today? Right. And I'll go for like the baggier thing just because I feel less comfortable because I'm not where I know that I should be in my fitness journey right now. So even though one area of my life is like amazing, it took off, fantastic. I love that. Congratulations. Celebrate that. I feel really good about that. On the flip side, I had more than one thing that was important to me and I didn't come any closer to achieving it, which means now that I have the awareness, it is a fresh start. A fresh new year is starting. So you know how most people, the gyms are like packed in January because everyone sets that fitness goal. They set, the weight they want to be or whatever that case is for you. And then in January, everyone's at the gym. And then by like February, no one is there anymore because everyone has fell off their goals. With this process, with this weekly tracking process and looking at the metrics and being focused on one specific goal and like doing everything that you can in your power to achieve it, that focus I know drives so much success. And that is what I am going to be doing for the last quarter of the year to make sure that I feel good in all areas of my life, because what gets measured gets changed. And I just haven't been doing that. And I'm a little bit disappointed with myself, but you can't change things looking back. Today's a fresh start. There's a fresh quarter and a brand new 12 weeks is about to begin. So that is what I'm going to be focused on. Hold me accountable. If you see me uploading, eating freaking tacos every Thursday again, please stop me, because I know if I was like tracking what I was actually eating, that wouldn't be something that I'm doing like on a regular day-to-day basis. And you can use the system literally for anything. So even if it wasn't career that you are focused on right now, freaking amazing. Maybe it's fat loss as well, right? Maybe you want to build lean muscle mass. Maybe you want to spend more time with your kids. Whatever that is, you can create a plan to do that within the next 12 months. So this was the goal that I haven't hit yet for this year, and that's okay. And the point of a quarterly check-in is really what it is. That 12-week year is not to feel bad, but it's to get into that driver's seat, it's to think about a real strategy to achieve those goals so you can feel good once they are achieved, and you can feel good in the process that you're doing something every single day to make your dreams a reality, right? Okay, so here's the second thing. I know I mentioned I'm going to be sharing 2 things, and within that first thing, there were like 10 things. Yes, I am fully aware, but it is a larger system. It is a process, and I just thought I'd share every step with you. So the second thing is also related to time just being a completely social construct. And the fact that we have 24-hour days are also completely made up. Like they were just made up one day. And I should look up the history and find out how they were made up, but that's just kind of what happened. And the whole world is adopted to that belief that there are 24 hours in a day, and that is fine. But what I like to personally do, and something that I've been playing with this year and adapting, which has worked extremely well, has been focusing on 6-hour days. So within one day, I like to fit in 2 days. So here's what I mean by that. So from 6 a.m. to noon, I think of that as my very first day. And the night before and the morning of, I think about what is the goal for that period of time. 6 hours. So it is a complete social construct that there's 24 hours in a day, and that's how long you have to work. 6 hours is a very long time. And I find when I'm focused and intentional, I can do a lot within that 6-hour period. So I literally look like from 6 a.m. to noon, what are my biggest goals? And I set one big goal. Typically, because I know my brain is super fresh in the morning, this would be my most important goal of that day. And I say, if I can only do one thing within that period, because there's a lot of things that are happening, like my son's going to camp, or I'm getting him off to school, or like there's this or that. And there's so many things. But I look at what my number one priority is within that period. So for me, I set one project. So it might be filming this podcast. It might be writing one newsletter that I know I need to get out. It might be one important work thing that would move my business forward the most if I did nothing else that day. Just one. I do the exact same thing from noon to 6. What is the one biggest priority that would move me in the direction of my dreams the most? What is the one thing? And I do that twice. So every single day, I check off 2 huge projects or 2 pieces of work that are going to move me much further along. And what that really looks like. So this morning, for example, there was an email that needed to go out. And all weekend, I was like thinking about it. I knew it needed to go out. It's super important. I haven't drafted it. I needed to send it to my assistant so she can format it, put it in the system, and have it go out. And I knew this is like the most important thing. It's time sensitive and needed to go out. So what I did was set that as my number one goal for that time period. And of course, I checked it off first thing in the morning. By 8 a.m., it was done. And I had built it up in my head like it's going to take me forever. It took me literally a couple of minutes. And sometimes we do that with our big goals. And then we realize like, it really didn't take that long. Like maybe you have on your list, like applying to 3 jobs that you flagged over the weekend. Amazing. You could do that much quicker than you're probably building it up in your head to do. So that is like the answering in this 6 hour period. What is the number one most important thing that I need to do? And I do that twice a day. I don't do it for like 6 p.m. to midnight because I try not to work during that period. Of course, sometimes things come up, but it's not in my plan to do that. My biggest priority through that time is actually sleep and rest and spending quality time with my family. So maybe at 6 p.m. we're taking a walk, we're having dinner, we're spending time together. Maybe we're playing a game of Uno. Maybe I'm taking a swim with my son. Maybe we're going in the hot tub with my husband, whatever that looks like. But that is my biggest priority. But what I like to do is set 2 large priorities for the day, one for the AM, one for the PM. And that way, no matter how the day goes, I could have 25 emails that pop off and I need to respond to them, whatever that is. I might have client questions, things that I couldn't expect, and they pop up. That is no problem because I still got the things done that move me towards my goals. So for PM, let's say another goal of mine can look like recording a podcast episode because I know it needs to be done for the following week. So it's like amazing. Okay. So for PM, that is my one biggest priority. Now, is it going to take me 6 hours to do that? Absolutely not. But that is the big priority and I will feel best getting that done. Now, most people will have a very long to-do list for their 24-hour period. They'll have like 10 things on it and they're fully scattered, not knowing, and this used to be me too, not knowing like, what should I do first? Should I answer my emails first? Should I get to my DM? What should it look like? And then you're scattered and you don't have a focus and it's not keeping in mind your biggest goal. So what I'd love for you to do and an action that you could take as homework is really think about if you did, just try it on, like see if it works for you. But if you did have a full day that was completed in a 6-hour period, what would be the number one most important thing to do? So if your 24-hour day was shrunk down to the 6-hour period, what would be the number one most important thing? So in the mornings, my first day in the morning, those first 6 hours versus my next 6 hours look really different. I have a different set of priorities for them. So I'm someone who always does a workout in the morning. So for me, one of my biggest priorities after I get that number one thing out of the way work-wise is going to the gym. So I have a workout, I'm laser focused, I come home, I shower, I get ready, I have my routine. And then I get to all of the other things that I have on the list. Those could look like phone calls, whatever it is, but I already know the number one thing was taken care of. Okay, amazing. Then it becomes the afternoon. This is a brand new, fresh start. And I really do have that division between morning and afternoon because my priorities are totally different. So now I'm working on the next biggest priority. And if I could only do one thing, I'm like laser focused on that one thing. Anything else I complete after that is a bonus, right? How much more could you get done if you were laser focused on only 2 of the most important things every single day? I used to use a different process, and probably when I recorded my first podcast episode, I probably talked about this, but I used to list everything out that I had to do, and it might be a list of 10 things. And then I used to prioritize and put like a star or put them in order of the things that needed to come first. And I would do the first top 3. But then I felt like sometimes there isn't, if especially you're working on big projects or deep thinking or deep work, it's not possible to do those 3 things. So this has been working much better for me. And I love having the fresh reset of like, okay, we are moving on to the second part of the day. This is day 2. Now, what is the one thing I could feel good about resting my head in my pillow that night? If I accomplished nothing else, what would that be? And look at that number one thing. And this gets me so much further than trying to do like a bunch of things and trying to think of it like, okay, I have these next 8 hours to work, so I'm going to do so much. And then looking at the list afterwards and thinking like, ooh, I didn't get what I thought I needed to done. So those are 2 new thoughts, 2 new ways of thinking that I am personally living right now. It's been so helpful. And it's really shifted my perspective on, what if you only did work for, that period of time? Could you still be as efficient as working 8 hours? And the answer is probably yes. And you can unlock a lot more time when you're more efficient with your time instead of thinking, oh, I could do it at 3 o'clock. I could do it at 4 o'clock and leaving everything kind of to that last minute and then feeling like you didn't get enough done just because there wasn't enough time and intention focused on the most important things. Everything else can roll over into the next day, especially when it's not a priority and hitting like your biggest and wildest dreams. So play with those two concepts as well. See if they work for you. Send me a DM also if you're open to trying this, if this is something you're going to do. Don't forget you have a whole quarter to hit those goals. And also when you create daily mini days within your day, you can do so much more. So your homework for that second action item, sit down and think about asking yourself the hard questions. If you decided that any of your goals is possible for you by the end of the year, what would that look like? What would they be? If you knew you could not fail, what would be the thing that you take action on? And then create a plan to get there. Also, if you're looking to get hired and that's the reason you're listening today, then amazing. Come to my free live masterclass. Again, it's happening on September 11th. If you haven't yet, swipe up, save your seat, and I cannot wait to see you there. It's going to be super powerful. We're covering how to get noticed in today's market without applying to hundreds of roles, why your resume isn't working and how to fix it really quickly so you can actually land those interviews you've been dreaming about, how to turn those cold interviews into incredible opportunities and move from those initial phone screens to the next interview. And also I'm breaking down some of the myths about why you may not be getting hired at this time, what is not working today that used to work, and some of the biggest myths and mistakes that I'm seeing too. So I can't wait to see you there. I'm also hosting a live Q&A at the end. And until next time, do your audit, see where you are for the next year, because you deserve a career that you crave. We all deserve to be in roles that light us up, that we are obsessed with, that we can't wait to make progress on. So that is what I want for you. And I'll see you at next week's live masterclass as well, happening on September 11th. Hey, before you go, if you've enjoyed listening to today's show, I would love your support. Please take a moment to leave a review anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And here's the exciting part. I'm running a special contest and giving away a one-on-one session with yours truly. All you have to do is leave a review, take a screenshot, and send it to me in my DMs. All of my contact info is in the show notes. I appreciate you so much, and I cannot wait to build the career and life that you've been craving together. See you next week.